nekuda. Smuchim la'ad li'olam asuyim le'emes v'yosha. Kedus sholach li'amay tziva li'olam b'risay. Kodesh v'neira shmoi. Leishis chochma yiras adinoi. Seichel teil l'chol esayim. Tilasay emedes la'ad. Okay. Hope we have enough copies here. If you don't mind that giving this out. Thank you. So this Monday is actually a Yontif. It doesn't have the same ramifications as other like Pesach and Shavuos or Rosh Hashanah, but it's a Yontif that's in the Torah, except practically in the days of the Beis Hamikdash, it was more practical, and today not as much, even though there is a little bit. But it's this Monday, and the reason why I'm doing this class today about the Yontif, which is going to be Monday, is because it's related to Mashiach. So what's the Yontif on Monday? The Yontif on Monday is the 14th day of Iyar. The 14th day of Iyar is called Pesach Sheni, the second Pesach. And I looked in the Chumash to see about Esther's birthday, but no, it's hidden there, you know. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the story, but there's a story with the Ramban. Ramban is one of the primary commentators on the Chumash. He was lived a little bit after the Rambam, Maimonides. He was called Nachmanides. But he had a student, which was one of his regular students, and something happened. He left, very angry, and he went as far as converting to Islam. And he became very wealthy, and then he became very powerful. I'm not sure what position he had, but apparently he had a very high position in government. And one day he ordered his soldiers that they should bring the Ramban to him in chains on Yom Kippur. Came to him in chains on Yom Kippur. And he said to him, I want to show what I'm going to do now. It's Yom Kippur, so you're not allowed to eat. You're not allowed to do work. What he did was he slaughtered a treif animal and he ate it on Yom Kippur in front of him. And basically he did a number of things in front of his face that violated Torah. And he was, obviously he did it out of such anger and in such spite that he forced him to come and watch the way he violates things in Torah. And the Ramban said to him, tell me, what happened to you? Why did you become such an enemy of the Jewish people? So he said, it's your fault. He says, my fault? What did I do? So he said, you gave a class, and in the class you said that in the Parsha of Hazinu, every single person's name is found in that Parsha. And that's impossible. It's a small portion. So I realized this whole thing is not true, it's a bluff, and I was very angry. So Ramban said, I still maintain that it's true. So if it's true, then show me where my name is. Ramban said, give me a moment. Turned around, faced the wall, turned back to him, and he pointed to a pasuk. We showed him that the third letter in each word in the sequence spells his name. His name was Abner. And he was beside himself. In a moment, he found his name. And then he started to feel really remorse of everything that he did. So he said, can I do tshuva? So he says, that's also here in the Chumash. And he showed him what is written there. And it says to take a boat and to go to a faraway place. Basically, he told him, If you want to do tshuva, you have to leave where you are now, all the honor, all the glory, all the wealth, all the power you have. No one should know where you're going. You have to go somewhere else and do tshuva. And that's what he did. So getting back to the original point, Esther's name is somewhere in the parsha, yeah. At least in Hazinu. Okay, so what's Pesach Sheni and how's it connected? It's, like I said, it's in the Chumash. So I gave out these sheets so we can actually look in the Chumash what the story is. So this is Parsha Baloischa. It's in the book of Bamidbar, Numbers. So as far as the Parsha is concerned, we didn't get there yet. It's going to be summertime, or really right after Shavuos. And it says like this: Moshe spoke to the Bnei Yisrael, told the Jewish people. This is when they were in the desert. This is the second year after they went out of Egypt. The following year, he told them so they should bring the Pesach offering. Pasuk 5. They performed the Pesach offering in the first month of the 14th day of the month, in the afternoon in the Sinai desert. They did it according to all that Hashem commanded Moshe. That's what the Bnei Yisrael did. So we all know about the Paschal sacrifice when they went out of Egypt, but this is a year later. That was the first time they did it to commemorate what happened the original time. Turn the page. They were men who were impure. Why were they impure? Because they were in contact with the dead body. And they could not bring the Korban Pesach. As we know that if a person is not pure, they're not allowed to enter the Beis HaMikdash, and they're not allowed to eat this meat, which has holiness to it, because it's a sacrifice. So they can't bring the sacrifice, and they can't eat the meat. So these people came to Moshe and to Aaron. Who were these people? So there's two opinions. Why were they impure? What was the background behind this? One opinion is, we know that Yosef requested that when they go out of Egypt, they should take his body with him. And he wants to be buried in Israel. And therefore, all the 40 years, they had Yosef's body with him. And later, they buried him in the city of Shechem, where he's buried to this day. But when they took him out of Egypt, who was carrying him? There were certain people that were designated to carry him. Now, these people obviously were not ordinary people, though. They were given this honorable task to carry the body of Yosef wherever they travel. And whenever they travel, they didn't travel every day, but obviously they were prominent people. But because of that, they were impure. There's another opinion. We just read the story. We're reading it actually in this week's Parsha, that a year after they went out of Egypt, that's when they built the Mishkan on Rosh Chodesh Nisan. And on that day, which was actually an amazing day, that God's presence came down into this world, in the sanctuary, but then a tragedy happened, and the two sons of Aaron died. That's this week's Parsha. So again, we see it says in the Chumash, Moses told people, carry out the body. Those people who carried out the body, they were the ones that were impure. And therefore, when it came to bring the Korban Pesach, they couldn't bring the Korban Pesach. So now these people, whoever they were, whichever opinion it is, they came to Moshe and they said, I underlined it, we are impure because we were in contact with a dead body. Why should we be excluded? Loma nigora. Like, why should we be less and be inferior and have less than all the Jewish people, that we can bring the offering to Hashem in its proper time? Especially that it's not that they did something wrong, they were doing something which was a necessary task. Moshe asked them to do it. Turn the page. So Moshe said to them, stand and I will listen to what Hashem will instruct for you. So basically, he's saying to them, wait a moment, I'll speak to Hashem and ask him, is there anything you can do to make up for not having the sacrifice? Pesach Tes 9, Hashem spoke to Moshe and he said to him, speak to the Jewish people and tell them, any person, in other words, not only these people, but any person in the future, if he will be impure from contact with the dead body, or he's going to be far away from the Beis HaMikdash, what if he can't bring the sacrifice because he's geographically distant? He was very far and he couldn't make it on time to get back. either there is Seichem, or for your descendants, or in the future. If he can't get there to do it, he shall perform the Pesach offering for Hashem when? In the second month. On the 14th day in the afternoon, he shall perform it. And when he does it, he should also eat matzah and also eat maror, like on Pesach. And don't leave any of it over until the morning, which is the same halacha as the Korban Pesach. Do not leave any of it over until the morning, and they shall not break any of its bones. You're not allowed to break a bone of the sacrifice. And follow all the statutes of the Pesach offering. Someone who is pure and was not on the road, which means he had no excuse, and he refrained from performing the Pesach offering, that soul should be cut off from its people, because he did not bring the offering in the right time. If there is a ger that lives amongst you, and he brings the Pesach offering to Hashem, then it goes on with more halachas. But what happened here was that they couldn't bring the Pesach offering. They came to Moshe and they didn't just say, what do we do? They came with a real painful cry. They cried out and said, why should we be worse? The whole Jewish people is doing one thing and we're not part of it. That thought was very painful to them. So Moshe told them what Hashem said. So let me give this out. This is Hayom Yom, and this is something which Rebbe would quote very often. In fact, not only in Pesach Sheni, but during other times of the year. Did I bother you again? I'm sorry. So you have the Hebrew on the one side, the English on the other side. Fair enough. Okay. Ouch. So the theme of Pesach Sheni is that it's never too late. This is very similar to the English expression, it's never too late, which means that it's always possible to make things right, even if a person was impure. So we're using this word now literally and also figuratively. The person is impure, meaning he's unfortunately not in a good place spiritually, or was far away meaning again geographically, or far away spiritually. Even in a case where it was lochem, in the Chumash it says lochem, which means that it wasn't totally an accident, it was also done intentionally. He knew what was happening. The Torah says, even if it was deliberate, nonetheless, he can correct it. How could he correct it? A month later, and 30 days later exactly, which is going to be this Monday, the 14th of Iyar, you can bring the korban and make up for what went wrong the first time. So the Rebbe says we see a very powerful lesson here. And that lesson relates to Mashiach. What's the lesson? So let's look again at Rashi. I'm looking at page 117. Look at the bottom, Rashi, the third line from the Rashi. It says, this chapter should appropriately have been said through Moshe, as all the rest of the Torah. Who gave the Torah? Who gave all the mitzvahs? Moshe. This was very unusual. This mitzvah Moshe didn't give. These people, they got the merit of having it said through them, because providence brings about merit through the meritorious people. What's going on here? Basically, Korban Pesach was one of the mitzvahs. It's actually one of the mitzvahs in the Torah, 613 commandments. Just like there's a commandment to bring the sacrifice, the first Pesach, there's also a mitzvah to bring a sacrifice, the second, if you missed out the first one. If you didn't miss out, you don't do that. But if you missed out, there's a mitzvah. It's 100 to 613 mitzvahs. If it's 100 to 613 mitzvahs, means it was part of Torah, and Moshe Rabbeinu should have taught this with the whole Torah. So we see an interesting thing. Moshe Rabbeinu gave them the Torah, gave them all the commandments, and this commandment he did not give them. In fact, apparently he wasn't even told. Then when they came and they demanded and said, why should we lose out? Hashem said, yeah, there's another commandment. I'm going to give it to you now. It's not just for them, but it's for the whole Jewish nation, and it's for all future generations. So we see from this that there are certain things that Hashem has it all ready and all set to give us, but for whatever reason, with certain things, Hashem is waiting for us to ask for it. And when we ask for it, that's when it comes. So first of all, in general, this is part of what davening is all about, because there are people who don't understand what's the point in praying. If Hashem wants me to have it, he'll give it to me on his own. If he doesn't want me to have it, then what am I going to nag him and beg and plead? If he doesn't want me to have it, I must have a reason for it. He won't give it to me. So what's the point in prayer? And the answer is no, there are certain brachas, certain blessings in life that Hashem does want me to have it, and he's ready to give it to me, but he wants me to do the avodah of prayer in order to get that particular blessing. But here we see it in a very powerful way, that there's a mitzvah, and this mitzvah is an important mitzvah like all the mitzvahs, and yet it was not given because Hashem said, I'm waiting for people to ask for it and say that they missed it and they want it and they're yearning for it, and then I'll give it to them. And that's what happened. So basically the lesson that Rebbe says, what we learn from this is regarding Mashiach, especially in the time that we're in now, that why is it so important to ask for Mashiach and to pray for Mashiach, and especially with the words Ad Mosai, which we spoke about. I mean, this was spoken about in the beginning of the year, but I think half of the class wasn't there when we did it, so that's why I'm doing it again. And secondly, now is the time that it's relevant because we're coming up to Pesach Sheni. So it means that Hashem, in a sense, you want to say something?
No, I just have a question. Like, I just compared to like other circles, why is the topic of Mashiach like so prominent in Chabad compared to other circles? I just always wondered that.
Oh, that's a big question.
Yeah.
So first, let me finish this part, and if I'm not going to finish this part, if I finish it, then with the rest of the time I'll answer that question. If not, I'm going to do it by the next class. And there's another thing that's possible, which is a message to anyone in the room, that I don't have to answer all the questions in the class. There's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday until next week, Thursday, which means if you have a question, you're always welcome to come downstairs. I'll make your time and I'll give you the answer. If you can't fall asleep before Thursday. But if you could, you can do it in class on Thursday. So therefore, there is a need to call out to Hashem, meaning to say, even though we don't find that this was such a emphasis years ago, but we'll soon see a few sources that this was something which was always done, which means Hashem is waiting for us to call out and ask for Mashiach. And here we see an example. Now there's another example. Let's turn the page in this little booklet that I gave you. This is the story in the Chumash of a different parsha. This is the parsha. This is page 370. Look on top of the page, it says 370. It's also in the book of Bamidbar, book of Numbers. And this is about a person whose name was Tzlofchad. And he had 5 daughters. All these women, these 5 women, were all righteous women. And the Torah tells us like this. This is the name of the daughters. Their name was Machla, Noah, Chagla, Milcah, and Sirza. What happened? They stood in front of Moshe and in front of Elazar the Kohen, and they said, they stood in front of the entire community. Obviously, they were very brave women, and they said by the door of the oil mud of the sanctuary, they said their father died in the wilderness. He wasn't among those group of people that came out against Hashem with the story of Korach. He was the one that led a revolution against Moshe against Hashem. No, he died because of a sin that he performed. It was something personal. He did not, God forbid, bring in and entice others that they should also go against Hashem. He did his own thing. But he passed away with 5 daughters, no sons. And the laws were already given regarding inheritance, that the land in Eretz Yisrael belongs to the different tribes, and if someone passes away, there's an inheritance that goes to the sons. So they said, why should our father's name be sort of omitted from his family because he didn't have a son? Why can't we be privileged to inherit the land just like him? And they sort of demanded, give us a possession of the land among our father's brothers. So these are 2 stories of people making a little bit of a demonstration and say, we're not just going to take it sitting down. Why don't we get a portion of the land? And they said, why don't we have the Korban Pesach? So Moshe said, you know what? I'll speak to Hashem. Let me speak to the boss and see what he says. Hashem said to Moshe, Cain b'nei Slavcha David, the daughters of Slavcha speak justly. They are right. They deserve to get a portion of the land just like the men. And then he gives all the laws about how inheritance goes and how the women have a portion of the land just as well. There's again a similar story. In fact, let's look at Rashi again. Look at the bottom of page 372, where it says number 7. God said, Slavcha's daughters speak justly. So Rashi says, this chapter, Hashem said to Moshe, this chapter is actually inscribed before me in heaven. Now that they're asking for it, I'm going to give it to you. In other words, it was all set, it was all prepared. I just didn't give it to you. Now I'll give it to you. And then Rashi adds, this teaches us that these women were so righteous, their eyes were able to perceive what Moshe Rabbeinu did not perceive. They saw that this is coming to them. So here we have another example, that here was a mitzvah in the Torah, laws that were already prepared by Hashem, part of the Torah like everything else, and nevertheless it wasn't given. But Hashem waited, apparently waited intentionally. I'm not going to give it until there'll be women that are going to show that they care and it means something to them and the land is precious to them. And therefore, if they come with that request, that's when I'll give this mitzvah. So here's another example of the same thing. We spoke about it then, that sometimes you hear from people that, especially this idea that we have to call out and ask for Mashiach, that this is something which where do we find that it's so important? So I want to give out this sheet, and then someone will give another sheet. So maybe we'll give out both at the same time. This will be for you. And maybe Laura, if you don't mind, you'll give this out. You're welcome. Thank you. So first we'll do the sheet that has the English here. It says on top, number 160, Nigola the Geula. By the way, now that we did that class, you understand why this book that's all about Mashiach is called From Exile to Redemption, from Gola to Geula. That all you do is put the aleph inside and it gets changed from Gola to Geula. Is what everybody that the coming of Mashiach is hastened when it is asked for and eagerly anticipated. In other words, one of the things that hastens Mashiach's coming is when we ask for it. So the Rebbe brings here something from Tanakh. It says like this: in this spirit, our sages taught. This is something from the Shalah. Shalah is one of the very famous commentators on Torah. What? Ken? That there were thousands of soldiers in King David's army that fell in the battle. And they fell only because they did not demand that the Beis Hamikdash be built. In those days, it still wasn't even the first Beis Hamikdash. Still need more. So then the Shalah says the following: if such things and such punishments were brought upon them for not having demanded it, these are people who never had the Beis Hamikdash. And in those days, it had not been destroyed. It just wasn't happening yet. In other words, Hashem's dwelling place was more of a temporary place. And they should have been asking that it's appropriate for Hashem to finally have a beautiful building, which is going to be his home, so to speak. So we in our days, the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, and we do not lament its destruction. We don't seek divine compassion for it, meaning asking Hashem to rebuild it, wherever it's so much more accountable. And this is why the righteous men of early generations ordained that we should pray 3 times a day. And in the prayers, they inserted the request, O compassionate one, in your abundant mercies, restore your divine presence to Zion and to the temple service to Yerushalayim. Likewise, they instituted the request for the rebuilding of Yerushalayim as a separate blessing, Beinei Yerushalayim. And we have this in benching, the great Sefer Meals. But in Shemon Esrei, it's this on the other side of the sheet. You have Yerushalayim, return in mercy to Yerushalayim, your city, dwell wherein as you have promised. Speedily establish the throne of David, your servant, rebuild it soon in our days. So basically, we're asking for the Beis Hamikdash to be rebuilt. The next bracha is again asking for the scion of King David, which means Mashiach should come, and we hope for his salvation every day. So what he brings down here is that there was a time when David HaMelech, who was a great tzaddik, was leading an army, and yet, unfortunately, the soldiers were falling. And obviously, if something's happening physically, it must be because there was something lacking spiritually. So the Gemara said what was lacking spiritually was that the Yidden were not asking to rebuild the Beis Hamikdash. So from this we learn how urgent it is for we to ask, and that's why it's in the davening. And naturally, we say it in davening, like I mentioned yesterday, or was it the other day? And I remember when, I think it was, yesterday, 3 times a day, we ask for this prayer, that the Beis Hamikdash should be rebuilt. The term that we use, the Rabbi instituted to say ad Mosai. So again, there were people who argued that these words are a little bit too strong. Ad Mosai is like demanding. And what?
Until when?
Right, until when means like Hashem, enough already. When are you going to bring Mashiach? It's like a complaint. So the truth is that there are many places where we find this term. We find it in Tillim, we find it in other. I just brought 2 places just to have a look. One is in chapter 74 in Tillim. Look where it's underlined. But David HaMelech is also saying, Hashem ad Mosai, these are the exact words. How long will the adversary disgrace, will the enemy blaspheme your name forever? Like, how long will you allow it to be? So clearly the words ad Mosai are words that are appropriate, and David HaMelech used those words. And similarly, on the other side of the page, you have another prophet whose name was Zechariah, also calling out to Hashem, and he says to Hashem, Ad Mosai, see where it's underlined, until when will you not have mercy on Yerushalayim, upon the cities of Judah, which you have spurned for these 70 years, referring to the 70 years of exile, in the Babylonian exile. So basically, first of all, the message, which is in Yiddish, Nishta came for found. If anyone knows anybody about Yiddish, means it's not exactly never too late. It's a little bit different, but that's the best translation in English. In Yiddish, it means there's nothing that is lost. This mitzvah teaches us, because usually when you need to correct something, it means I had to do something, I didn't do it, so now I'll do it. What about mitzvahs that are time-bound? This was supposed to be done the 14th day of Nisan. So the time is over. I can't do anything about it. So even something that's related to time in the past, and the past is gone, the Torah tells us you can do something today and rectify something that was meant to be done a month earlier. So basically it's the concept of tshuva, that no one should ever think whatever happened, and it's too late. Basically, Hashem is saying in the Torah, everything could be repaired. But right now, what we're focusing mainly is on this point. I just want to explain why is it necessary? Like, why does Hashem have to do it in such a way? But the truth is, this question could be also broader. And a broader question means, being that Hashem wants us to learn Torah, He wants us to observe mitzvahs. Why is it so complicated? Why is it so challenging? And we all know how challenging it is for everybody. Even somebody who was born with Torah and with mitzvahs and he did it all his life, and that's what his father did, and that's what his grandparents did. He saw it all the time. It's still challenging. There's so many things in life that are challenging our complete dedication to Torah and mitzvahs. And if Hashem wanted to create a world, which is a physical world, and transform the physical world into a spiritual entity, a place where God's presence is found, so why didn't He just do that? Create a physical world and transform it and make it into a holy place. So, when you study Chassidus, we always find that Hashem created the world for the purpose. He wanted this world to be a dwelling place. So why didn't He just do that? Take a second. Create a world. It's a very physical world, the lowest of all the worlds, and then the second later, transform it and make it into a dwelling place. And the answer is, it's not just that He wanted it to be a dwelling place. Hashem's desire was that this world should be transformed into a dwelling place for Hashem through the actions of humans. And therefore, Hashem created the world in such a way that there are challenges, there's free choice, and we are the ones that are making it happen. So, for example, angels. Angels are pure, angels are holy, they're only doing good things, they have no Yetzer Hara, and they are serving God every second of their angelic life. That's not what gives Hashem the true pleasure, because angels have no Yetzer Hara, which means that they're programmed to serve Hashem. So even though they're serving Hashem in the most amazing way, but in a sense, they're not doing it. They were created that way, they were programmed that way, and therefore they are functioning the way they were programmed. But Hashem created us in a way that we have the ability to go one way or the other, and we choose to do a mitzvah, to do something right. When we do that, it's our choice. We did it. And when we did it, this is what gives Hashem the greatest pleasure. And by the way, we don't really understand why. In other words, whenever we say that the reason why Hashem created the world was in order to transform this place into a dwelling place, we're not explaining why. Because whichever reason you give, it's still not understood. Why did Hashem need it? If He's infinite and He's complete and perfect, He's not lacking in any way, He's not deficient in any way, then why would He want it? When you want something, it's because you're deficient. If I'm thirsty, I want water. If I have a desire for some sort of a pleasure, I'll do something that I like, I'll eat something that I like, I'll do something which is entertaining. That means I'm deficient, I'm missing something, and therefore I have a desire to do something. But if Hashem is not missing anything because He's perfect and complete, why did He create the world? Any reason you're going to give is still going to be a question. Because he's not missing anything, so why did He do it? You'll say He wants the pleasure that we transform the world into a dwelling place. Oh, you mean He was lacking something and now He has it? That means you're saying he was deficient. There was something missing in His perfection. So we never really can figure out the answer why. Being that Hashem is infinite and we are finite, there's no way that a finite brain could comprehend infinity. It's impossible. But all the things you find in Chassidus is not so much the why, but it's about what. What is Hashem's plan? What is it that He wanted? And the answer to that question is, what did He want, or what does He want with creation? Like, what's the mission statement of creation? That we transform the world into a dwelling place through our efforts. And that gives Hashem pleasure. Now, even when we explain it, why it gives Hashem pleasure, but that explanation, all these things are after Hashem created the world already in such a way, but we can't say that this is the essence of why He wanted it, because that would mean He was deficient. Like, for example, there's a mashal from the Maggid HaMizrich. Probably every Rebbe of Chabad, somewhere, someplace, brought the mashal. And the mashal is of a person who did something, violated a certain rule in the kingdom, and they got arrested, and they was on trial, and the verdict was that they're going to execute him. But before they do that, they give the person the opportunity to say something in his defense. So he asked for the opportunity. He said, "Okay, yeah, I need a little bit of time, and then I'll come back." Okay, they gave it to him. Comes back. When he comes back, he has a parakeet on his shoulders. Instead of him speaking, the parakeet speaks and starts off saying, "Your Majesty," and starts praising the king and talking about the greatness of the king and how benevolent he is and how kind he is and how compassionate he is. Basically, the king is laughing all the way through the whole speech because it's a bird speaking very eloquently and beautifully and really bringing out his points in an amazing way, but it's a bird, so it's just very funny. At the end, the king waves his hand and says, "Okay, you can go, cancel." So the mashal is, if he would have given this speech, would have had the same impact? No. The reason why it had an impact on the king was because it's a novelty. It's a bird speaking, and a bird speaking like a professor or like a lawyer. And that's the amazing thing. In other words, it's the novelty that gives pleasure. For Hashem to create spiritual worlds and create angels and create all those things, that's normal that this is a place of spirituality. What gives Hashem pleasure is that he created a physical world, a very materialistic world, a world with a lot of challenges, and he created people that are subject to those challenges, and we choose to do the right thing. This gives him the greatest pleasure. And this is the explanation to one of the things it says in Tanya, that sometimes you can have two people. One studies a lot of Torah. For example, everything he studies, he reviews it 100 times. And there's another one that reviews it 100 times, but then gets to a point where he reviews it 101 times. You probably remember this. I'm thinking Rabbi Peg did it, chapter 15, where the Alter Rebbe explains that this one time, because it's sort of something that he has to go beyond his nature, this is the most precious to Hashem. Which means if you borrow from this idea to take it to a different possibility, one year studying Torah 10 minutes a day, they never studied Torah in their life. They were just introduced to it. And it's a little bit of a challenge. Should I go? Should I not go? Finally, he decides to go, and he pushes himself to study Torah. And of course, every time he decides to go, it's either raining or storming or it's snowing or his wife needs him. There's always something coming up, and he's determined to go learn for those 10 minutes. There's a possibility that these 10 minutes could be more precious than someone else is learning 10 hours. Because for that person to study Torah 10 hours is natural. He's been doing it his whole life. For this person studying 10 minutes, that's really his accomplishment because it's not natural for him. It's not something which he made a habit of it. It's something new and it's something which he has to struggle. And therefore, this is what's most precious to Hashem because it's considered my accomplishment. And the same thing here, that Hashem could have given us this mitzvah of Pesach Sheni, could have given us the mitzvah of the women inheriting the land. Why these two mitzvahs? But Hashem chose the most precious to me is when it comes through their effort. I want them to ask for it, and they should show that they care for it. And when they do that, then they will get that mitzvah. So, I mean, one thing we do see that they're both related to redemption. This is about redemption from Egypt, and having a portion in the land of Israel is about the redemption and getting into Eretz Yisrael. So apparently it's something related more to redemption that Hashem wants it to be through our efforts. So same here with Ad Masai, that even though we are now at a point where we deserve Mashiach and we're ready for Mashiach, and Hashem has everything all set, ready to go, there's still something where he's waiting for us to show that we have a need for it, that we have a desire for it, and we have an interest in it, and then Hashem will bring Mashiach. So that's the lesson. Practically, I just want to say, I don't know if they did it in the halacha class. So what practically happens Pesach Sheni? There's something we do and something we don't do. What we do is we eat matzah on Pesach Sheni. Everybody saves a little bit of matzah from Pesach to eat it on Pesach Sheni. And that's what it says in the Chumash, to eat matzah. It's not a mitzvah like it was in those days, but it's a custom. And the second thing is we don't say tachna. Being that it's a yontif, we don't say that part of davening, which is tachna. There's one exception with Pesach Sheni, and that is every yontif, when you don't say tachna, the day before mincha time, you also don't say tachna. For example, Friday will be Lag BaOmer. So Thursday, Mincha time, we don't say Tachna. The one exception, I don't know the reason, is Pesach Sheni. That even though Monday we don't say Tachna because it's Pesach Sheni, but on Sunday we do say Tachna, even Mincha time. So these are the practical halachas. One more thing, when do we eat the matzah? Do we eat it by day or we eat it at night on the 14th? I would think that you should eat it by night, because when did they eat matzah by Pesach Sheni? Just like the first Pesach, they ate it at night. They brought the sacrifice by day, but they ate the sacrifice at night. So we should be eating the matzah at night. Right? But the custom is that we eat it by day. Why? I mean, one of the reasons that are given is even though the actual eating was at night, but it all began by day with the actual sacrifice. But I'm just telling you about the practical part. What? There are some people that do both. Yeah. But I mean, the main time to eat is by day, and they'll also eat something. All eat matzah at night. Especially if it's good, nice, soft matzah, you can eat both. Have a great Shabbos, everybody. And you're all going away, I understand, different places. So enjoy and have a great time. Come back inspired.
Good Shabbos, Rabbi Majeski.
Don't get so inspired that you don't want to come back, but come back inspired.
Good Shabbos. Can you hear me? No. Good Shabbos. Rabbi Majeski. Can anyone hear me? Hello?